Hey, fat fish heads! It's time for another edition of the hottest new podcast on all platforms, Fat Fish. Sit back and strap yourself in for the wildest ride on the open seas. Now, flap your fins for the fabulous Fat Fish brothers, Eric Fish Snyder and Brad Grunny Grunberg, a.k.a. Snacks.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Dave Linden. Show number 28. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing good, my friend. How are you?
I'm feeling good, buddy. I'm feeling good.
All right?
I feel great, man. Every time I see you, I feel great. And today we have a very, very special guest. He's an old friend and just a true mensch and a talent beyond belief. Mr. John Kassir is here. Oh, boy. And there he is. Oh, my. The voice of the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt. John, thank you for being here, brother. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Oh, my
My
God.
pleasure. You know, just so you know, Eric, Fish, Eric, do I call you Eric Fish? Do I call you the Fish? Do I call you Scales? What do we?
Well, Brad calls me Schmuck.
A schmuck on this high holy day. And people, I'm not a Jew, but I play one on TV constantly.
You too.
But just so you know, I've never met Brad. He's been stalking me for years, and I finally agreed. He's, he thinks I know him. No, I'm just kidding, obviously. But boy,
Yeah,
how
John.
many years, Brad?
I want to tell everybody how we met. John and I met way back in the day on a show called The Amanda Show. Amanda Biles, he played her father, and I played believe it or not, Fish, a hot dog vendor. Yes. So I come to the set and I go, where's my dressing room? My dressing room was in Las Vegas. I go, I'm not going there. So John goes, hey, puts his arm around me, goes, why don't you use my dressing room? Share it with me. I go, what? You're the star of the show. I shared the dressing room with John Kassir. How nice is that? He didn't want me to walk so far. He didn't want me to go to Vegas, change my clothes, and come back. So that's how we met, and we've been friends ever since. And it's a wonderful tryst. And John, I love you, buddy. Thank you. This has been fantastic. And John is the voice of many, many, many of your favorite characters. And John, could you tell us how it all started way back in the day? I think you're from Baltimore, correct?
I am.
There's the Ravens. Look, Fish, the Ravens. I know he's a Raider fan. He loves the boo.
Yeah, they sucked yesterday. Just to throw that in there, but no, they're a great team. I grew up on the Colts, but as a kid, and then of course they got up in the middle of the night and left. I don't know how that happens. Actually, they put it in they said they packed the team as a kid. To hear that they go, well, they packed everything in a couple of Mack trucks and they took off in the middle of the night with it. And you're like, they made the players get in a Mack truck, and you're like, as a kid, you're sitting there going, how did they do that? Did the players have something to say about that? They didn't want to get in a truck. It's like, no, they took their equipment. They're going to make like another team wear their equipment. I mean, anyway, I didn't really understand it. And then of course, yesterday we got beat by the Colts. So what are you going to say? Yeah, I grew up in Baltimore and, I've been an actor since I was a kid. I got involved in all the shows and the plays and everything as a kid. I used to do circuses out of my basement for the other kids, charge a penny. And they charge 5 cents for the penny candy, kind of like they do at the movie theater, make all their money on candy, Enterprising, even back then. continued to study it. Got my degree in theater. Got my first off-Broadway show, which paid $175 a week. So found out really quickly how poorly paid you are in the theater, even in New York. And so I started doing stuff like street performing in front of the Metropolitan Museum and that kind of stuff, and doing a little bit of actually hadn't really done much in the way of stand-up comedy. I'd done sketch comedy for a number of years with a Baltimore-born comedy group called Animal Crackers, toured the world for the USO and that kind of thing. We had quite a lot of success as a small improv group. And then here's one of my first things that I had as a kid there in the background. If you look over there, you see the little ventriloquist dummy. When I was a kid, I used to remember when you were kids, they had like your mom could drop you off somewhere while she shopped and nobody'd arrest her. Because I remember my mom dropping me off at a place called the Toy Barn. The Toy Barn was, think Home Depot, but with toys. And next door was the grocery store. So she'd drop us off. We had 5 kids in my family. She'd drop us off while she went shopping. We just check out the toy store. And they used to have the ventriloquist dummies on the shelf. And I would climb up on, these erector set type shelves, and I'd hold the dummy and have them talk to people as they walk by. Oh my gosh. I was like, wasn't even 5 yet. On my 5th birthday, I woke up and my mom had got me when I was sitting on the end of my bed. So, it was something that I toyed around with from the time I was a little kid, in terms of voices and characters and that kind of thing. So, eventually making my way, got an off-Broadway show called 3 Guys Naked from the Waist Down. Do you remember that show, Brad?
Well, I couldn't have played a part in that. It would be an embarrassment.
Oh, but you could have. It was, because people thought it was like a gay review down in the village, but it was about stand-up comics. It was kind of the metaphor how a stand-up comic feels in front of the audience when they're bombing. It's like naked from the waist down. And my good buddy Jerry Colker wrote it, and Michael Rupert, Tony Award winner for Sweet Charity, and all these other, as an actor, wrote the music, and it was a wonderful hit off Broadway. Starring myself along with Scott Bakula and Jerry Colker, who wrote the piece, but I played, kind of like the Andy Kaufman-ish, stand-up comic whose only real reality was through his stand-up. And Scott played the quintessential MC brilliantly, I might add. And Jerry played the angry comic, like the guy who dropped out of Harvard Law to become a stand-up comic, to have a soapbox to get up on and fling his angry comedy. They said, and now Phil Coonan, whose personality had been described as the great coral reef, please welcome, kind of thing. And it was a hit. Was that?
Oh, no. We wanted to know, I want to ask you a question. When you got to LA, did you do more voiceovers or did you do more acting? I know you started in New York.
Completely acting. I mean, I hadn't done any voiceovers. I mean, I used to do the morning announcements with my buddy Fred in high school. Like everybody come to us and go, hey, can you do like for our event? And they'd give us free tickets or whatever. But every morning we do, the following morning announcement brought to you by a grant from the Mobile Corporation. We do the whole thing, and we'd have, hey, John, Poole, George, Ringo, you're going to the Gymkhana troupe tonight. We'd imitate the teachers and that kind of stuff. So it's not like it wasn't in my blood to do voiceover work, but I had never really done any professional voiceover work until Tales from the Crypt. I was doing this play off Broadway that I was mentioning, and I got asked to do Star Search in its first season. And I was like, what is a singer? I said, this is a musical. You know, it was a musical about stand-up. Think Dream Girls, but with stand-up comics, you know? So, you know, everybody thought it was a stand-up comic because I was playing this, you know, getting some really good reviews, playing this dark, you know, suicidal comedian. And so they asked me to do Star Search, and I was like, you know, I can sing, but I can't, you know, Sam Harris was on the show at the time and he was killing it. And I was like, I can't sing like that guy. And they're like, no, we want you to come on as a stand-up comic. And I'm like, you know, I'm not really a stand-up comic, right? That's a part I'm playing in the show. They go, yeah, well, you can win $100,000. I'm like, fuck, have you seen my act? You know? So,
Hey, Fish, let me tell you something about John here. You know, we know one thing. We have no game with the ladies, but with these voices and your talent, that must have been a chick magnet, Kassir. What do you think? Huh? You must have got a lot of ladies back in the day.
You know, I don't kiss and tell, Johnny, but you know, Brad, Grunny.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's you know, some of the women, you know, but I have the most wonderful wife.
Oh my God, Vanessa, his wife. I work with her on private practice in the Loop group. She is one of the sweetest, nicest girls I've ever met. And I go, why in the fucking world are you with John Kassir?
I mean, and she's gorgeous.
She is gorgeous. I mean, please. I mean, it's not your personality. You must have a very large manhood downstairs. That's all I know. Because
tripod was my was my nickname in high school. You know.
Oh, hey, Fish, you ask John about his your favorite role you've seen him in First and 10.
Oh,
go ahead, Fish. Tell him why did you?
I want to talk about Debbie Does Dallas. Debbie Does Dallas. I saw John and Debbie Does Dallas, the remake. It was great. You know, it was. Well, no, you know what, John. First of all,
don't start
I'll
rumors.
Get a word in edgewise. We have to be nice to Brad. Well, no, I'm joking. This is the worst holiday for Brad because he has to fast. So be very nice to him. You know? There's donuts in front of him. He's not eating them right now.
We've had a lot of lunches.
John, I love First and 10. I loved you, Zagreb. You were the place kicker. I'm a football fan. All right. Look at my team in back of me. We had a chance to beat the Steelers last night and help you.
I was rooting for you. Just for, even
talk
more
about
for that
First
reason.
and 10. He worked the double on Revenge of the Nerds. Yeah. He worked with Marshall Teague. Marshall Teague was great in Roadhouse. All the cast, O.J. Simpson. Talk about your role. Talk about First and 10. Yeah.
Well, you know, because that, you know, going on Star Search.
Am I still there?
Yeah, we're here. You're cutting out, but we're okay.
You guys still there?
Yeah, we're here. He's in Vegas. You know how that is, John.
Boy,
I know this guy.
It's the heat. It's a dry heat, but you know.
He lost all his money last night on the Raiders.
Oh boy, dry heat with dry humor. But you know, I was, you know, when I was talking about earlier about this show, I went on Star Search, and because I didn't have any material, I was doing all these characters and voices, and that's, you know, that kind of led to my voiceover work. But my first series that I jumped on was First and 10 on HBO, and was a fun time. You know, if there was anything else that I ever wanted to be besides an actor, it was a football player.
Really?
Yeah. You know, I was an athlete all through school. Lacrosse was probably my best sport. Had some scholarships to play lacrosse. Once I got out of high school, didn't use them because I was going into theater. But I was on the football team in high school, JV. It's 135-pound running back, and but very fast. Was a very fast runner, and I think I practiced maybe 2 days with varsity. when I moved up and got my ass kicked, and I was on the soccer field the next day. And I had never played soccer. We had like the state championship soccer team, and I made the team because of my athleticism, but mostly, sat the bench in that sport. But football, I'd always wanted, if I had, been a bigger kid, it might have been something that I had wanted to pursue. So being on 1st and 10, playing a football, even though he was the kicker, not a running back or anything, I got to be on a show with my biggest football heroes. They had somebody on the show every week, as well as great actors. That was Delta Burke's first series. That was Chris Maloney was a quarterback on that show from SVU. Jason Begay, who was on Chicago Cop, Chicago PD or Chicago Cop. I can't remember the name of the title.
Yeah, Chicago PD, I think.
Is it PD? Do the same as does Chicago Fire, but as the sergeant, wonderful actor. Gosh, obviously we had the comedy, which was me and Don Gibb and Tony Longo and Prince Hughes and Cliff. Just an amazing group of people. And then, of course, we had OJ on the show, who was a producer and an actor on the show, played the general manager, who was a really great boss to work with, actually. Over the years, I came on. They brought me on to do 2 episodes, beginning of the second season, and my first scene was shooting in a bar with Sam Jones, who was playing the quarterback, who we all know from Flash Gordon, and OJ. And I had them laughing so hard, OJ was like, "We need to get this guy on the show all the time." Well, I wound up on the show the next 6 years.
Wow.
Regular.
Wow.
So,
did you have to show that you could kick the ball, or did they have a stunt guy come in and do all your kicking?
All right. Funny story. There was a whole progression to that. That's a really good question. Because when I went to the audition, I brought like a Nerf football with me. And I wouldn't speak English to the casting director or the producers. And they were hysterical. And then I go, so I do the scene, and then they go, Nike? The guy goes, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I take off my shoe. I use it as a tee. I smashed the football into his Venetian blinds. And I'm like, okay, these guys think I'm nuts. There's no way they're going to hire me. Meanwhile, I wound up on the show for 6 years. But they brought in John Lee. John Lee was
UCLA
right? Kicker at the time. And he was going to I'm sorry. He had come from UCLA and started playing for St. Louis. And, the guy had a leg and a half, and he came in and showed me how to, because I had played soccer and stuff, I had a really good foot. I could actually kick a 40-yard field goal, not with 300-pound guys running at me, but for any of the stuff that, any of the stuff where it was just me practicing or kicking, or they were showing a close up of me kicking or kicking from behind, they could show me kick a ball, through the uprights 40 yards. So that was pretty good. John helped me a lot in making it look legit in terms of my setup and the timing of how you would need to do it as they run down the clock and all this kind of thing. And so, yeah, I had to kick. I have a football that I was going to get as many, pro signatures on as possible. I wound up with just OJ's on it. It says, to my good friend John Kassir, I have that football. I was gonna give it to my brother to put in his trophy room, some years ago, and then the whole the Bronco scene took place and the whole thing, with the
you never knew you never knew your boss would become a double murderer,
people like, "Oh, how did you see it in him?" I was like, "What do you see in a person that you would see that, unless they were on a regular basis threatening people or something?" But
Sure.
But no, they. But yeah, my brother was like, "Hey, where's my football?" I go, "I'm keeping it now."
I'm gonna keep it. No, let me ask you. I don't know where Fish is, but who cares? Because I'm the show. But take us take us back to when you got Tales from the Crypt as the Crypt Keeper. You auditioned. Did you have to come in and do it? Who did you do it for? How many auditions did it take to get the role? All that good stuff. Because I have a lot of friends who are in voiceover work, and especially our announcer Dave Linden. He would love to know how you did it and how you got the part.
Well, because I was already working for HBO on First and 10, they thought of me. Called my agents and said, "Hey, can John come down to Kevin Yeager's studio and audition? We need somebody who's, funny. And since you've been doing stand-up comic, by the way, after winning Star Search, I don't even know if we ever got in there that I wound up winning Star Search.
No, I didn't know. Oh, you won Star Search.
Oh yeah, I won $100,000, dude. Oh. I beat Sinbad in the finals. I beat Rosie O'Donnell in the semifinals. You didn't know that. How did you not know this?
I should know this. What's wrong with me?
Well, I was leading up to that, talking about Three Guys Naked and all that stuff, and how they came and asked me to be on the show, and I was and I went on because I had done sketch comedy and stuff. I would and because I didn't have an act, I would do like The Wizard of Oz in 2.5 minutes. It's a twister as cold and I must conquer. This kind of shit. And what's them? That's the castle of the Wicked Witch. Oh, Dorothy's in that awful place. Oh, I hate to think of her in there. Fellas, we've got to get her out. I got a plan how to get in there, and you're gonna lead us. All right, I'll go in here for Dorothy. Wicked Witch and the Wicked Witch. Gods and no gods is just one thing I want you fellas to do. What's that? Talk me out of it.
Oh, have you ever been institutionalized by your parents?
Oh, yes, actually. Story for another day. Brad.
Another show, yeah.
Another show, another day, not on a holiday.
Okay.
No, seriously, it opened the door for me opening. They're like, you're gonna open for Tom Jones in Vegas, they announced on the show, and I'm like, what? I can't open for Tom Jones in Vegas. They go like, why not? I go, I have no fucking act. I've just been making this shit up every week. I kept winning, and I kept having to come up with another bit, till eventually I had them like roll me out on a dolly as a 3-in-1 machine. Or I did one day I did an act where I did a send up of Star Search called John Kassir's Talent Scouts with the contestant. It was an inflatable love doll. And I did I like tape over her mouth. So when she sang, she went, oh, kind of stuff. And I didn't expect to win at that point. I mean, I didn't expect to. I was already in the semifinal, qualified for the semifinal. So I didn't expect to continue to win because I was flying back and forth doing that show and Three Guys Naked off Broadway. And I continued to win. So, but yeah, that launched the whole thing with the voiceover thing. So they knew that I did voices in my act at HBO. And they knew that, they wanted an actor who could be funny in the way a stand-up could be, but understood the whole thing. And I was just thinking when they called, I go, oh my God, they're making that into a show. I collected those comic books as a kid. It's controversial. HBO, of course, had a limited membership at that time, unless people were stealing it on cable. But I really didn't have any reservations about going in and doing it, but at the same time had no dreams of it being anything major. So I was just excited by the fact that they invited me down to Kevin Yeager's studio to see what he was doing in making the puppet. If you don't know Kevin Yeager, Kevin also made Chucky and designed Freddy Krueger. I mean, he's one of the top guys in the business, and he made this animatronic puppet. And in fact, at first they gave him like no budget. You know, as HBO didn't give you a lot of money to start with, and it was an expensive show to do. So they had to come up with some extra money from the producers and all that. But he was using Chucky eyes because he had spare parts in his studio. And I think he thought originally that might be temporary, but it just brought so much, you know, character and panache to the Crypt Keeper that he kept it. But I got to see him, you know, some of the versions of what he was working on down at his studio. And there was some, you know, I think I remember Michael Winslow was there and Charles Flesher and a bunch of other people, but there was all these voice actors who everybody wanted this part, you know, and I didn't even think about it because I wasn't in that fraternity of voiceover actors yet, but you know, certainly was with the stand-up comics who were there auditioning, and they did a pre-read with you with a casting director. And then they brought you in to Kevin's studio, and Kevin had a little cassette player, like a boom box with a cassette recorder on it and a little lav mic that you were recording into. And he's sitting there like this, and I can tell he's just been listening all day. And it just wasn't working. And I start doing that voice, and he's like,
"Oh, yeah."
And he starts laughing, and I start laughing. I'm like, great. The Crypt Keeper laughs at his own jokes, you know, I'll just keep going with that, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm doing it he had me like the next day going in and auditioning for Joel Silver and Richard Donner. Wow. Who are, you know, obviously at that time, especially the biggest guys in the business. And, wow. And they were like, hey, we'll see you on the set, you know? And of course, as a young actor, you're sitting there going, yeah, I'll believe that when they're paying me, you know? Yeah.
So when you read for Joel Silver and Dick Donner, was there one thing that you did? It was laughing at your own joke, right? And did you get to improv, or was this off script? Did you just go?
Oh no, they just gave me some puns to say, and I made up all the rest. You know, for that, you know, I mean, we had great writers that wrote all the Crypt Keeper sequences and stuff, but I mean, over the years, I had to improvise conversations on radio broadcasts. You know, every season they'd set me up for 50, 60 radio interviews at drive time, you know, like Mark and Brian or some of these guys, you know, in the morning, over 2 days, I would do all these, and they wouldn't be interviewing me. They'd be interviewing the Crypt Keeper. And so I would have to, you know, like, I'd be like, as I was thinking of stuff and they were writing to me, I'd be jotting down pun after pun and stuff that we had done on the show and, you know, all this stuff. And, you know, so over the years,
one thing, John, I used to do some, work in some of the clubs in Hollywood. A lot of people know that I worked at the Hollywood Tropicana Female Mud Wrestling, and, I've dibbled and dabbled.
Johnny Cocktails.
Yeah, Johnny Cocktails. And, one thing about it, you married the most beautiful girl in the world. But, during your younger day, I wonder, like this one girl told me, hey, baby, I'm a queen on the streets, but I'm a freak in the sheets. So I want to ask you a question, sir, okay?
Wait a minute, that's you talking or the girl that you
That was with? The girl talking to me, yeah. She was telling me how special she was. So I'm wondering, when you were dating some of these younger ladies, during your younger day, you would get between the sheets and, oh yeah. Did you ever go to the Crypt Keeper? That's what
I got a bone for you. I don't remember that.
Oh,
you know what? There was a lot of really wonderful, colorful ladies over the years that I dated. Every single one of them was special and wonderful, and not all of them are even with us anymore, but sadly. But
so the Crypt Keeper, you went to the Crypt Keeper. So what you're saying to our audience today is, while you were making love to these ladies, you all of a sudden morphed into the Crypt Keeper. Give me a little bit more of that. That's what I wanted to hear.
They were not. They were that. That's not true. But I'll go with it.
Go with it.
I love a ghoul who'll give you head and then let you keep it.
Yes, Johnny. Yes. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. No one ever asked you that question, right?
No, actually. I mean, no, people did. It was like, did you ever, romance women with the Crypt Keeper voice? There were. I mean, I didn't. I never really dated fans, so it wasn't like, can you do the Crypt Keeper voice for me? I'll do that. Whatever you just said. If you, no, I mean. And early on, most of the time, I was always the kind of guy that was looking for a relationship, somebody who I could really have as a partner. I mean, I was a busy person once I got established. I mean, when you're a young actor in New York, and you're not making any money, you don't really date a lot because you don't really have anything to bring to the table. It's like, oh, let's go out to dinner. I don't have any money to take you out to dinner. I hid some money in my apartment. We can go have a slice downstairs, Let's see. I made about $600 street performing last week. We can go out to dinner somewhere, But,
what's interesting about you? I feel that you've just kind of winged your career. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like thrown it away. As an actor, we're taught just throw it away. Don't think too much about it, and you'll talk yourself out of your audition. But you just seem like the guy, because you started as a young performer for your friends. You just kind of wing what you do. It's wonderful. I just love it. I mean,
oh, thanks. It's obviously very hard work. You see, again, if you're, in New York, I moved to New York to do my first off-Broadway show. I got an off-Broadway show. It was offered to me by Paul Berman, who was the head of the theater department where I studied at Towson University, which is now Towson University in Baltimore. And he was really wonderful. He'd come out of the group theater from years ago. He would bring in, amazing playwrights and was invited to direct 2 world premieres by Eugene Ionesco, who did Rhinoceros and all these really great plays and of the absurd, which was a huge honor for him. He did one at the university, and then they were doing one at the Guggenheim Museum in New York as an off-Broadway production in the Frank Lloyd Wright Theater there. And, so he offered me a part in that, and I moved to New York based on that. And like I said, paid $175 a week. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with 3 other people in order to be there and do that. So, making a living is really, very, very hard at that point. And you feel like you're so far from ever having a professional career. Literally, my idea of it is that whatever I did, I wanted to continue to perform and make my money performing, whether it was street performing, whether it was, if somebody asked me to come, do mime at their kid's birthday party, I would do it because it was performing. I did singing balloonograms because a friend of mine had a business doing that. I had a helium tank in my, I spent most of the time going, all right, guys, come on over. Let's get high and hang out here in New York. But I remember my first singing balloonogram was to Leroy Neiman, the artist who did all the sports art and the Playboy bunny in the little joke part of the Playboy. And, he had like one of the most amazing apartments you'd ever seen at the Hotel des Artistes in New York. And I remember auditioning, coming in to deliver him a balloonogram, and he was so tall. I was like, oh my God. I think they probably told him we weren't supposed to talk. We were supposed to come in and do mime but I started a whole conversation with him, but probably got in trouble for it too. But, I wanted to make my living as a performer. And you imagine yourself to go down one avenue And it's not that I just threw it away. It's that I listened to the paths that were offered to me. And, the Robert Frost poem, "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the path less traveled, and that's made all the difference." Of course, that path you need a machete because it's also overgrown. But,
who have you worked? Who haven't you worked? You've had an incredible career. You've done so much. Who and what would you like to do before it all, comes to an end? You retire one day. Is there somebody you want to work with, an actor or a performer? Or...
Gosh,
is that a good question? Besides
it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I mean, I've obviously. I mean, my first network series was with Sid Caesar. People are like, "Sid Caesar, was he alive when you were that age?" I was like, "Yeah." He was in his 70s and still extremely funny. And they did kind of like a Broadway Danny Rose kind of series. And I played the young comic hanging out with the older comics. And it was Sid Caesar and Jan Murray and
wow.
Maurice Hines, the Hines brothers, and Arlene Galanka, and Guy Marks, who was, look him up, you'll go, oh, that guy. But and I played the young, and Annie Golden, from she's been in all kinds of stuff recently, Orange is the New Black and everything, but was at the time was a darling on Broadway doing Leader of the Pack and wonderful shows. And we were the two young people on the show who were being mentored by these older actor comics and stuff. And so from there, my whole career was working with some of the most amazing people. I remember auditioning for Carol Burnett for her last sketch show that she had done, which didn't really do very well. I don't think she didn't find her Tim Conway and Harvey Korman during that setup. But I remember going in and auditioning for her. And I got the same thing. At the time, you're sitting there going, well, they want to see the best you can do, but they don't necessarily want to see the best you can do. They want to know that you can play second banana, third banana, and that kind of stuff too. And so I remember going in and auditioning for doing my Wizard of Oz bit for Carol Burnett in this little office. And she was like, oh my God, you should have your own show. And of course she didn't hire me. And you're like, oh crap, I blew it. I played too many of my cards, but so I did have a lot of opportunities with a lot of famous, and some of my heroes. I remember doing a CSI, NCIS episode, and I was supposed to be one of Robert Wagner's oldest and best friends. And it was just so much fun hanging out with Robert Wagner, who I had grown up watching on TV. And he was still so handsome and also smart and funny. And he just told me story after story. I was like, oh, yeah, Jill's out there, probably trying to, pick up young guys in Beverly Hills. Of course, he was kidding, while we're hanging out here. And, he's talking about Jill St. John, you're still like, oh, thank you for using just her first name and talking to me about her. But, how can you not fanboy out in that, as a comedian, getting the opportunity over the years to hang with, at the Improv, I used to hang with, Whoopi Goldberg or who happened to be in the room at the time, and they knew who you were, and oh, let's do a stand-up special together. Let's have lunch. So, okay, we go to Lucille Ladobe, have lunch with Whoopi Goldberg, as whatever. We were working on a soundstage next to each other while they were right next to Seinfeld.
Let me ask you this.
Series,
Yeah, you've been with so many people. Let me ask you, what advice would you give a voiceover artist, an actor just beginning their career? What advice would you give them of the maybe the ups and downs of your career, because we've all had them, but you've been so successful. What advice would you give, like my buddy Dave Linden, the voice of our show? What advice would you give Dave Linden? He's very established, but he always likes to hear from guys like you.
I mean, honestly, this, Brad, everything, the entire template has changed. I'm not even sure I would know how to approach my own career now. I mean, obviously it's about social media. I mean, I always wanted to create my own stuff, and there wasn't a platform for it. You go, oh, I want to pitch this. I go to my manager, I go, I want to pitch this. And they'd be like, well, without having a showrunner attached, without, somebody established in the business, they don't even want to see it. If you don't have the script represented by an agent, they don't even want to read it because they don't want to get sued if they use it, blah, 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 all these different things. Now there is so many venues for you to do anything you want, Yeah, you may not have the money to do it, but it's a lot cheaper to shoot something on an iPhone than you would have had to shoot back in the day. You would have had to shoot it on film.
True.
Videotape or whatever. It was expensive. You would have had a crew. You would have had somebody light it, the whole deal. So honestly, the biggest recommendation I can have now is partner up with the people you've always loved working with, especially young people that, as a young person. I mean, just about everybody you see on a comedy nowadays, came up through doing everything from Groundlings to Second City to Upright Citizens Brigade, to, all these different, and I came from a background of improv. As an actor, doing improv not only is a great networking part of the business, especially here in LA or in New York, but or Toronto for that reason, wherever it's still, beloved, it also made me very comfortable walking into a room and auditioning for people.
Right. And you do that so well. Your manager, I heard, was Ruben Cade, right?
Yeah. He had a brightly colored bus, but this irritating family that he had along with him, these partridges that he had following me around all the time, just so irritating because everybody always would like, I'm sorry, it's fine. We'll feed you at lunch for your job, but you can't bring the partridges along. We don't have the budget to feed them as well, You
represented the Partridge Family and John Kassir. It's amazing, both very successful. What would you tell your younger self? What would you tell your younger self now? You've had an incredible career, decades in the business. Is there anything you would tell your younger self?
Believe that you're enough. Definitely. That's the one thing. I mean, I could become anything they asked me to become, but I didn't believe that just me was interesting enough for them to hire. And really, so many projects that I auditioned for, they just wanted me. They wanted, that the one thing I really love about young actors these days is the examples that they've had from other actors allows them to believe that really them being themselves is as interesting as anything else, and that's what they're going to get hired to be. Doesn't necessarily make them versatile and ability to do other things, but outside of that, but that doesn't matter. You can show those talents later if you get the opportunity. For me, because I came up, here I was trying to become a serious actor in New York, and I wanted to be the next Dustin Hoffman or whatever. And the next thing I know, I'm winning Star Search, which isn't something that I even ever thought that I would ever do.
Right.
But knowing that it was an opportunity to get me from street performing in off-Broadway theater in New York to TV series and sitcoms and showing that I could act. I mean, at first people are like, well, he's a stand-up comic. He's not really an actor. So, and then of course I fought for years to try to get people to believe that I was an actor, not a stand-up comic. And then they were hiring all the stand-ups to give them their own shows. And they're like, well, you're not really a stand-up. You're an actor playing a stand-up and blah, 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 So it was kind of a weird thing that I did. I always thought that I wanted, when it started coming to me that I wanted to be, hugely known and famous and be able to do whatever I wanted. and then realize that that's an easy way to get yourself to become a flash in a pan too. It's like if you can't maintain that like your entire career, forget it, you're gone. Whereas somebody with a career like mine, where you try to cull everything that you feel you have the talent to do, and make opportunities. There was so many different things I had going on at the same time, all the time, that it kept me working for the last 44 years as an actor.
Wow.
And, but honestly, I would have loved to have landed some of those roles playing myself when I was younger. And I just didn't, it's not that I didn't know how to do that. I just didn't believe that's what they wanted from me. After winning Star Search and that kind of thing, they go, "Oh, you're going to be the next Robin Williams." I was like, nobody can be the next Robin Williams. Right. I can be the next John Kassir, but Robin Williams is unique unto himself, as unique as you can get. And, I'm unique too, but, I interpreted that to mean I'm supposed to come in and bounce off the walls in an audition for something that doesn't require that.
Be yourself. Like I just got the last part I got before our strike, and thank God it's ending, I hope, for the actors. It did for the writers. I got Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I went to self-tape. My buddy Steve Richard Harris is the best guy. And I told him, "You're going to be Larry David, and I'm going to be Jonas the Riffer guy, and I'm going to get this." And I brought myself, oh my God, look who's back. I brought myself to the role, and I got it. And by the way, I thought we killed off Fish. The Crypt Keeper killed this guy off, and now he's back. Fish, where you been? Fish? Okay. Yeah, exactly. Who knows? But I love him.
We threw him back.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
Like you do with Fish.
Of course. John, my grandma always said something. And first of all, I want to say something personally to you. I love when people are successful who deserve it. You have a big heart. Thanks. You're a mensch. You're just a salt of the earth. And I'm just happy for your success. And I know it will continue. And I'm going to give you a great line from my grandma. Helen Nanny Klein would say, "John Kassir, you should only sei gesund." Okay? So that's how we're going to end this. And do me a favor, John. Could you do me the pleasure of take us out with the Crypt Keeper? Give me a good Crypt Keeper, something in the sheets, in the bed. Here we go.
Be careful what you ask for, kiddies. You may get it.
John Kassir. Oh my goodness. Thank you, John. I love it. You're the best. Oh my God. Chucky, those Chucky eyes. Fish, are you? Oh yeah. Tales from the. Oh, God. John, thank you so much. I love you.
My pleasure, guys. It's great talking with you. And we'll.
Fish, are you there? I guess not. Wow, what a show. Number 28 is in the books. I don't know what to say. It was one of the best interviews I had. Fish, I love you. What happened? We got to call Cox Cable. I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank John Kassir. I want to thank Fish for not coming on the show. I want to thank Dave Linden. He's going to be taking us out. We'll see you next time on show number 29 on Fat Fish Podcast. I'm Brad Grunny.
You've been listening to the Fat Fish Podcast, heard on all your favorite platforms. Until next time. You've been listening to the